Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss how the Home Secretary wants her cabinet colleagues locked up and deported, and how she is about to embark on a policy that will lower the average wage of British workers. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, then please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So, Priti Patel on locking up the Prime Minister and other cabinet colleagues. So, without a shred of irony, the Home Secretary went on television to do an interview in which she said that there is no dabbling in drugs, that, it was a serious offence. This was used, of course, to justify the deportations, but given that quite a few of her cabinet colleagues have done so and been happy to admit to it publicly, including Boris Johnson and Michael Gove, one can only assume it's the government's policy to throw themselves into prison now. Oh, but I was forgetting the one rule for one and policy that's going to come into force. Yeah, I forgot. Sorry. Oh, well, never mind. On to the actual meat of why she's suddenly piping up. So a while ago, early on last year, someone asked, could I actually think of any actual benefits to Brexit? Apparently, I was being terribly negative and I should talk about the benefits to Brexit. Because after all, even if I believe that the downsides are just overwhelmingly stacking up and that's why I'm in favour of remaining, or was in favour of remaining, now in favour of rejoining, there's got to be some benefits of Brexit, Phil. Come on. So I racked my brains. I mean, Brexit supporters weren't helping me. They weren't coming up with any. So I thought I'd lend a hand. I eventually came up with one, in that Brexit would mean that we can't recruit the number of workers we need to drive our economy, especially unskilled workers, that's in a minute, but even skilled workers we're struggling with now. Not because the immigration system wouldn't allow them into the country, but because of our hostile environment in the country is making them go, do you know what, we don't like it here, you're not very nice to us. So then we'd have no choice but to improve training in the UK. Now, as a teacher with a lot of experience in colleges, I can tell you that vocational training in the UK is an afterthought at best. It's always been easier to recruit workers from overseas than for Conservative governments to properly fund our education system, which is something they see as nothing more than an expensive network of daycare centres until the law lets children sweep their chimneys and wash their cars. And as 2019 was increasingly showing, lots and lots of skilled EU workers leaving the country rather than put up with, well, frankly, the embarrassing level of hostility we have in this country now, it seemed clear that the government might actually have to take training seriously. Indeed, the Home Secretary is announcing that firms need to train more UK workers to cope with the lack of migrants. People are saying, but, we're going to have massive job shortages in these industries. Yes, get UK workers doing them. Yeah. Right, hurrah, Brexit benefit. The government are going to have to pump money into vocational training, set up bodies to coordinate properly between businesses and colleges so that we know where the shortages are and we take active measures to train people, particularly in the right areas for those industries. Fantastic. Unlike the ramshackle system we have now, we're going to actually kickstart British innovation and manufacturing. We're going to start making things again. But oh no, wait. That's not what she seems to be saying when you look at the detail. There's not going to be any more money for this. She said that the UK government would not allow in what they call unskilled workers. Now, bear in mind, that's what they call unskilled workers, not necessarily what are unskilled workers. So the echo of cheers from the Brexit supporting unemployed, who now think, I can get a job now because all these foreigners were taking my job. But the thing is, the jobs she's talking about are already shortage areas. There are already jobs there. So any British citizen who wanted those jobs or was suitable for those jobs could have had them anyway, because they already can't get enough workers, even with migrants. There have never been enough workers in these areas. And now that we're not allowing people in the country to do them, so the government say anyway, I've said before, what the government do with immigration and what they say about what they're going to do with immigration are not always the same thing. But if they do, and there's every reason to believe they will at the moment, then there will be greater pressure not just to encourage British people to do them, but to force them to do them. So have fun at the old people's home. Try not to let your finger go through the paper. Have fun serving drinks to your millionaire overlords, cleaning their hotel rooms, putting up with their crap, and all for minimum wage, which will be much less than they promised that it would be. And these jobs are vital to fill, absolutely vital. We can't not have them. Low skilled and low paid they may be, but they're absolutely essential. Imagine if we didn't have these jobs, what it would do. So the government will absolutely do whatever is necessary to fill those vacancies. And consider this. Yeah, so we need those jobs filled, and more importantly, they need those jobs filled, but their immigration rules won't stop skilled foreign workers coming over with their points-based system. In other words, they can fill the skilled jobs. I'm not going to say without a problem, because again, this hostile environment we have still makes that tricky, but the immigration system in theory will not stop us filling the skilled jobs with migrants. It just stops us filling the unskilled jobs with migrants. So there'll be a net move of skilled British workers potentially to unskilled jobs, as they are the only source of workers for those vital jobs. Not so much the other way around, because the government aren't going to be funding skills training. So it's not like we're going to raise the skill set of the British public. That's not what they're talking about, because that would require funding and a plan. They haven't announced either. In fact, the reverse. They've talked about funding cuts. And so that means you're not going to be upping the skills of British workers. And that means, of course, a net movement of British workers from skilled, well-paid jobs to low-skilled, low-paid jobs. In other words, the average wage of the British worker decreases. Well done. You just voted yourself a pay cut. But in the short term, what you're going to see is massively increased shortages in areas already hampered. Most notably health and social care, but as well as hospitality, but that doesn't affect everyone to the same extent. So have fun not being able to find care homes for elderly relatives if they need them, or having medical appointments repeatedly cancelled due to lack of staff. And if you're thinking, hang on a minute, the government have said that unemployment is at a record low. How can we possibly fill these vacancies by just forcing the unemployed to do this work? There aren't enough, are there? There are rather more unemployed people than the government admit to. In fact, our pioneering Home Secretary has said that there are 8 million working age people not currently economically active. Granted, some are going to be financially independent and need not work, but they're not all millionaires. In fact, nowhere near that many is actually financially independent. So that may still leave many millions of unemployed in real terms, not what the government classes unemployed for their figures, but in real terms, and not that they're available. And even if they're not available, because not everyone, someone was trying to explain to me on Twitter as if I'm dumb, not everyone, to be fair, a lot of people on Twitter are dumb, I don't blame them. Not everyone who's not working and isn't financially independent necessarily is looking for a job. They may be a carer, for example, as this person suggested. Yeah, the government will consider that economically inactive still, and they don't want you to be economically inactive. So they'll cut funding for that. They'll cut benefits as well. And for you, those of you still thinking it all works out, consider how they will force people to fill those vacancies. Because I know, a lot of people have this view that people who are unemployed are effectively work shy because they watch the television programmes which all feed this behaviour. And but that's not the case. I have to say to you, as someone who's been on benefits before, you would take a low-paid job over that. In fact, I did when I could get one. So this is what happens. The job centre finds you a position in a care home, which they class as unskilled. You don't need to know anything to work in a care home, apparently. 20 miles away from where you live. But I don't have transport. And public transport would mean a 4-hour round trip every day to get to and from work and take half my wages. Tough would come the response. We found you an unskilled job. Unskilled means you can definitely do it. And so you're off benefits now. That's it. You're gone. And so you do that. And obviously you can't cope because you haven't got any wages because you're spending it all on transport and you're spending all your time on transport. Maybe you can't even get there. Maybe public transport doesn't even allow you to get there because you have to get there too early and the buses aren't running and it's a remote location. That's your problem. But let's say you do manage to get there and you're doing the job, and would you believe it? There are skills required for it that you're struggling to come to terms with, and you turn out to be unsuitable for the job. It's skilled in a way that wasn't appreciated. You do it poorly, you lose your job. There's still no way back on benefits, because the fact is, as far as the Department for Work and Pensions is concerned, they sent you off to do an unskilled job. If you lose that job, it's because you did it deliberately to get back on benefits. So you won't be getting back on benefits. And that's not even considering the horrendous way they will treat people with disabilities or serious illnesses. Brexit Britain, everyone. So I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, then also please click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.